begin tonight with a serious warning to women on one college campus, the University of Virginia. Sororities are telling young women to stay inside and stay away from fraternity parties. The fear is that these women could be at risk of sexual assault. It's become a major issue on campuses across the country, but some say this warning puts the blame on women, on victims. Erica Fitzy is at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. Erica.
Well, good evening, John. You know, this is supposed to be an exciting, action-packed weekend here on the grounds of UVA. You've got the men's basketball team playing the rival Duke University in a televised game tomorrow. Plus, you've got the fraternities on the grounds here who will be welcoming new members with big parties across Greek Row. And yet you've got this frustration mounting here from men and women, many students, not just within the Greek life, who are really expressing outrage over this new rule that they say really shows some gender segregation, and they have been expressing their outrage, trying to get things changed, but nothing has changed. Meanwhile, the university president, who really has been steering clear of this, saying that this is a controversy within the Greek community alone, well, now she may be changing her tune.
Just by taking girls out of the equation, by preventing them from going to things that they actually have the right to go to, it's not helpful to the problem.
Segregating the genders isn't something that I think would be effective at all in terms of preventing sexual assault.
Probably no one feels that way more than the very sorority sisters who are being ordered to stay away from their fraternity brothers on one of the biggest party weekends at the University of Virginia. At a time when 1 in 5 women on U.S. college campuses say they've been victims of sexual assault, no one doubts there's a problem. It's the proposed solution these women reject.
We're not objects, we're people, and we deserve to make our own decisions and be where we want to be, and we should be looking out for each other by ourselves, and we don't need, I don't think, a parent telling us to stay in.
That parent is the National Panhellenic Conference, which oversees dozens of sororities. The decision follows a largely discredited report about an alleged gang rape on the UVA campus. Sophomore Ellie Caton says her sorority, along with several others, have been pushing back on the mandate, but to no avail.
That's a huge part of our culture here, is change coming from the students, and that almost always gets it done. We wrote petitions, we wrote letters, we wrote articles.
So they reached out to the Student Council for help.
Frankly, an appalling picture, right?
Vice Chair Abe Axler says he's been trying to be a liaison between sororities here and their national chapters, but his calls for meetings with the Panhellenic Conference have been denied, and his emails are going unanswered.
And that is where Student Council can play an important role, right? It's to give voice to those who have a voice but are being constrained by that, and to highlight just how ridiculous that is.
But if the National Panhellenic Conference won't even listen to what you have to say on behalf of them,
well, it's interesting. I believe they're listening to me, but they won't talk to me, which is an interesting thing. So I could talk to them, and then they talk to their chapters, right? That's how they engage.
The university president, Teresa Sullivan, has already said this kind of singling out of women is not warranted. Still, she sees this as an issue within the Greek community. And with frustration growing, we caught up with President Sullivan to see if she's changed her position. You have actually stepped in to address Greek life, even going so far as to suspend activities. Why now, with hundreds of sorority sisters feeling sequestered in their own houses due to this new rule, do you not take a stronger stand on this for them?
I thought I issued a pretty strong statement yesterday that singling out our students doesn't seem appropriate. But you must remember that the fraternities and sororities here own their own houses. They are private organizations, and the students voluntarily join those private organizations.
But in this scenario, they are not governing themselves. I mean, this is a mandate coming down from above, from the national chapters. They feel like they don't have a voice.
I have already expressed my strong feeling about that in the statement yesterday, and I will assist the students if they ask for that assistance. At this time, they haven't asked, and that is how I am respecting their self-governance.
And some of the sorority members may very well take up the university president on her offer.
And so maybe now will be the appropriate time for us to say, okay, we did our best. President Sullivan, help us.
So with only hours left, of course, sororities are really running out of time before the big day tomorrow. So many of them say, look, they're going to abide by the rules and they're going to stay indoors and plan game watch parties. But there is talk on the grounds here at UVA that some sorority sisters may rebel, risk the consequences, and celebrate with the fraternities anyway. John?
All right, Erica, thank you. Hadley Heath Manning is a senior policy analyst at the Independent Women's Forum. She's also a sorority alumna. She joins us from Denver. Hadley, what do you think of this? Is it a good idea?
No, I think the sorority's reaction here is an inappropriate reaction and an overreaction that sends a bad message about men, about women, and about the prevalence or the incidence of rape on college campuses.
What's the message?
Well, the message that they're sending essentially by telling girls to stay inside is that the only way to avoid sexual assault is to board up their windows and lock their doors and avoid going outside into the rest of the world. That puts the blame on women, but it's also sending a bad message about men, that fraternity men are like animals, that they have no self-control and that they might assault any woman that enters their house.
In some ways, does this blame Greek culture?
Of course it does. You know, there are a lot of parties that happen in and around college campuses. And in fact, young people enjoy going out and drinking and having parties even when they're not students. And although we tend to associate rape culture or the prevalence of rape with campuses, it's actually more frequent that a woman between the ages of 18 and 24 would be the victim of rape if she's not a college student. So we've got to get our facts right about telling women and men what the risks are when they tend to engage in these kinds of behaviors.
But isn't alcohol a key factor, and isn't alcohol very visible when it comes to fraternity and sorority parties?
Yes, I'm sure it is, but it would be much better to encourage students to be responsible, to be their own individual agents and make their own good decisions instead of making the decision for them that they can't even leave their sorority house on a Saturday night. That's treating them as if the men and women in Greek life are incapable of interacting in a respectful and responsible way, which sends a terribly bad message to these young people.
All right, you may have heard in that piece that one of the students suggested that blaming this on the integration of men and women is really simply the wrong thing to do. And I don't want to take your words out of context, but you wrote in an article recently that the Greek organizations are the few last bastions of single-sex living on campus. Does that help prevent sexual assault, in your opinion?
You know, I think it's so important then who is making the decision. Are we allowing men and women to self-segregate? Because I think there are some occasions and situations where that's appropriate. Some living conditions, day in and day out, some students may prefer to be with people of the same sex. But when we look at the broader context of the world that we live in, there are going to be occasions where you want to intermingle, want to integrate with people of the opposite sex. I believe the question of most importance is who are we allowing to make those decisions? Is it a top-down decision forcing boys and girls to stay separate, or are we giving them the choice themselves? You know,
I kind of wonder whether or not the lawyers have gotten a hold of the Pan-Hellenic Council and suggested that the reason they should do this is to prevent them being liable for something that could happen. What do you think?
You know, at the end of the day, every incident of rape is a heinous act of violence and should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. And of course we all want young women to be safe and protected, but it sends a bad message, and it's also not a sustainable and responsible solution simply to ask women not to leave their homes or not to attend some of the parties where they might actually be engaging in positive relationships, engaging in fun memories that they could make in their college years.
Hadley, it's good to have you on the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We turn to